and welcome to ARIRANG News. It's Thursday, November 20th here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. Let's first take a look at the stories we are following at this hour. Following a UN committee's adoption of a resolution on North Korea's human rights situation, Pyongyang responds and says it will not abandon its nuclear ambitions. Meanwhile, a North Korean national close to the executed uncle of Kim Jong-un is reportedly missing in France. Local police believe he may be on the run from North Korean agents. And the U.S. state of New York is buried under snow. An early winter blizzard has killed at least 7 people, and regions near Buffalo are bracing for even more snow. Our top story this afternoon, North Korea has lashed out against the passage of a UN draft resolution which calls for the regime to be held responsible for violating human rights. Pyongyang says it's going to strengthen its war deterrent. Lee Ji-yoon has more.
North Korea is angry and is now threatening to conduct more nuclear tests. On Thursday, Pyongyang's foreign ministry issued a statement strongly rejecting a United Nations draft resolution that refers North Korea to the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity. Calling it a U.S.-led attempt to overthrow the North Korean regime, the ministry said it will no longer refrain from conducting nuclear tests. And it looks like Pyongyang is getting ready to back up its words with action. Satellite imagery taken this month suggests that the North might actually be preparing to reprocess nuclear fuel into weapons with bombing capabilities. Analysis done by the U.S. Research Institute 38 North says the plutonium production reactor at the North's Yongbyon nuclear facility has been shut down for 10 weeks. As to why the reactor was shut down for longer than it needs to be, the institute says that the North seems to be replacing spent fuel rods and preparing to reprocess them. The imagery also shows steam coming from a cooling tower that's consistent with maintenance, testing, and other activities that take place before operations begin. Analysts point out, however, that Pyongyang has gone down this path before. Its nuclear reactors were shut down in 2007 under a disarmament agreement, but last year, North Korea restarted them. Lee Ji-yoon, ARIRANG News.
Local police in Paris are looking for a North Korean student. The young man is reported to be a son of an aide to Jang Song-taek, who was purged by Kim Jong-un last year. Kwon So-ah has the details.
The North Korean man, who had been studying in Paris for around 3 years, has been missing for more than 2 weeks now. French authorities are taking the case very seriously, considering the male student's close family links to Jang Song-taek, the uncle of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, who was purged and swiftly executed late last year. There's speculation the student, only identified by his family name Han, could be on the run from North Korean agents who want to forcefully repatriate him to the north.
We don't know the whereabouts of the student. We are currently assessing how credible this case is.
Han had been studying at the École nationale supérieure d'architecture de Paris, La Villette, an architecture college in the French capital, with 9 other elite students from Pyongyang's prestigious Kim Il-sung University. Given that Han is the son of a reportedly purged aide of Jang Song-taek, there are rumors the North Korean regime is still not done with getting rid of Jang's inner circle and their associates. If the assumptions are found to be true, the case could spark a huge diplomatic row between France and North Korea, especially in the wake of the EU-drafted UN resolution that calls for the North Korean leadership to be brought before the International Criminal Court. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
So diplomatic ties surrounding the Korean Peninsula may not be at their best right now, but that isn't stopping a joint railway project from picking up pace. Industry insiders say a South Korean consortium will test a transfer of 35,000 tons of Russian coal from the Najin port in the north to South Korea's southern port of Pohang starting next Monday. The coal will be delivered from Kasan to Najin on the recently renovated 54-kilometer railway. Seoul, which banned investments in North Korea after the regime torpedoed a South Korean warship in 2010, has allowed the consortium to indirectly invest by purchasing Russian stakes in the initiative. The efficiency of the latest venture will ultimately determine the future of trilateral cooperation and President Park Geun-hye's Eurasia Initiative. Now, South Korea has taken a big step forward in building its latest K2 tanks. A crucial part of the tanker can now be produced with 100% homegrown technology. The military says this will help close its numerical shortfall against North Korea. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The last batch of 100 K2 Black Panther tanks installed with a combination of a German-made engine and transmission systems were put into service this year. The combinations are often referred to as power packs. South Korea started developing its own power packs in 2005, but the military knocked them back as they weren't deemed powerful or reliable enough. That is until now. Nearly a decade after development began, Korean power packs are now being fitted to the South Korean military's K2 tanks. The power packs enabled the tank to go from 0 to 32 kilometers an hour in just 8.7 seconds. Officials say that makes them fast enough to evade enemy anti-tank missiles.
The next batch of K2 tanks will fit future battlefield environments as they have enhanced mobility, firepower, and defense features.
North Korea has a sizable advantage over South Korea when it comes to the number of tanks it has, but most are believed to be antiquated. The North Korean military has 3,500 tanks at its disposal. The South just 2,400. Seoul plans to reduce the numerical gap by dispatching these latest tanks.
K2 tanks are far more advanced than the previous K1, so when they are fully deployed, South Korea will have the North Korean military on its toes.
The South Korean military says K2 Black Panther tanks will be in service by 2017. Officials hope to also sell the K2 to overseas buyers in the coming years. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
In the year 2012 for Korea was at its record high.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul.
Shopping market thinks the true meaning of creation shines through. It's only the third week of November, but a snowstorm has hit New York State, killing at least 7 in the U.S. And residents in Buffalo are bracing themselves for a year's worth of snow over a period of just 3 days. Connie Lee has more.
New York is bracing for more snow as residents are still recovering from this week's deadly blizzard. At least 7 people were killed from being buried in the snow, traffic accidents, or heart problems. As some residents start to dig themselves out from the massive snowbanks, New York's governor is urging residents to stay indoors.
When we say stay home, really stay home. Going out on the roads is dangerous. It's unnecessary. You're not going to get anywhere. You will get stuck, and then you will further complicate the situation.
More than 100 National Guard members have been deployed to help clear the roads and remove abandoned vehicles. Dozens of cars were stranded all around the state on Wednesday, with some passengers being stuck for nearly 30 hours before being rescued. Buffalo, New York State's second most populous city, was hardest hit with about 1.5 meters of snow. The National Weather Service predicts that some areas could break single-day records for snowfall. This early cold blast of winter has actually affected much of the country. Officials say all 50 U.S. states had areas that hit the freezing point on Tuesday, and the southern and northeast regions are expecting more record-breaking cold temperatures in the coming days. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Police have recovered the bodies of Miss Honduras World and her sister, both missing since they were last seen leaving a party in a plateless car last Thursday. 2 men were arrested in connection with the disappearance. One was described as the boyfriend of the sister. He reportedly confessed to shooting and killing the 2 young women and led authorities to their burial site, a shallow grave in a field by a river. Police said they also had in their possession the murder weapon and the vehicle used prior to the crime. Reports say the suspect shot the sister following a fight and ended up shooting Miss Honduras World too. Back here in Korea, with deflation woes mounting, local research institutions continue to lower Korea's economic growth forecasts for this year and for 2015 as well. They say inflation will stay in the 1% range next year, lower than the government's outlook of 2%. Song Ji-sun has the details.
Slow growth and low inflation are making it hard for Seoul to reach its growth forecast this year. Korea's economic recovery has lost momentum since April's deadly ferry disaster, which dented domestic sentiment, and it appears the trend may continue well into next year. In July, Seoul slashed its growth forecast for this year from 4.1 to 3.7%. But that's still higher than the market median, which stands at 3.5%, according to financial data released Thursday. It's the same story for next year's growth outlook. While the Korean economy is expected to grow at a relatively faster rate compared to this year, the Korean government stands alone with a forecast of 4%, with others expecting the figure to fall in the 3% range. The inflation forecast for next year from private institutions rests in the 1% range, nearly a percentage point below the government's outlook. That suggests the inflation will hover in the 1% range for the 3rd consecutive year. Slowing domestic demand coupled with falling oil prices will only compound the issue, which may sound like a good news for consumers, but not in the long run.
Once prices continue to fall, both consumption and investments shrink on expectations they will fall even more, leading to further deflation. To avoid such a recession, the government must facilitate the domestic economy in a way that boosts both growth and prices.
A weak Japanese yen, slowing growth in China, as well as an end to U.S. quantitative easing are also casting a shadow on the Korean economy as downside risks for the coming year. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
Korea's total and short-term foreign debt, in the meantime, are on a downward trend spurred by the weakened local currency against the greenback. Korean investments overseas have also exceeded foreign investments at home for the first time. Our Hwang Ji-hye tells us what this means.
New figures show that Korean banks are now less vulnerable to external shocks. The Bank of Korea says that the total foreign debt stood at around $430 billion as of the end of September, down roughly $13 billion from the amount recorded 3 months ago. During the same period, Korea's short-term foreign debt also fell for the first time this year to $126.1 billion, down $5.7 billion. The ratio of the short-term foreign debt against the country's total foreign debt went down 0.4 percentage points as of the end of September to 29.4% from the end of June. Short-term foreign debt is considered as one of the 3 major indicators, along with foreign exchange reserves and current account balance, that measures a country's ability to pay back its foreign debts. While the new numbers show that Korea now stands in a better position in terms of paying back its debts overseas, the finance ministry says that the drop largely stems from the weakening local currency against the greenback. Korean investments overseas also outpaced foreign investments in Korea for the first time ever as of the end of September. The total of Korean investments abroad stood at $1.05 trillion, with foreign investments in Korea at $1.02 trillion. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
In just about 3 weeks' time, leaders from 10 ASEAN countries will be in Korea for a special meeting with President Park Geun-hye. The event is being held to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Korea's relations with ASEAN. Hwang Sung-hee has more.
The 2014 ASEAN-ROK Commemorative Summit will kick off in Busan on December 11th. The two-day meeting invites leaders from 10 Association of Southeast Asian Nations member countries, like Myanmar and the Philippines. Up for discussion are ways to expand cooperation between Korea and the ASEAN countries, as well as global issues such as climate change and disaster relief measures. Since establishing diplomatic ties in 1989, ASEAN has become Korea's second-largest trade partner and investment destination. The region is also one of the most popular vacation hotspots, with over 4 million Koreans visiting the bloc every year. The commemorative summit is expected to further bolster the relationship.
Last year, President Park Geun-hye proposed a vision for partnership for trust and happiness in defining Korea-ASEAN relations for the future. The commemorative summit will present a comprehensive blueprint to realize this goal and will be an opportunity to celebrate 25 years of friendship between Korea and ASEAN.
The leaders will engage in bilateral meetings and enjoy a welcoming dinner on the first day of the event. The ASEAN-ROK Commemorative Summit will take place on the second day, followed by a joint press conference. Hwang Sang-hee, ARIRANG News.
Come the year 2020, content sales to foreign markets are expected to expand more than 30% from this year to some $85 billion. That's according to the Korea Culture and Tourism Institute on Thursday. Exports of K-pop music are expected to lead the way in terms of sales growth, increasing by 66% from this year, followed by television programs, advertising, and the gaming and film industries. Now, the thought of going to prison is scary to most of us, if not all. But if it's a simulated prison cell, it might be less intimidating. Our Park Ji-won says there are, in fact, many people out there who voluntarily lock themselves up. Take a look.
People from all corners of the country arrive at this center in the town of Hongcheon, about 2 hours to the east of Seoul, for a couple of days of rest and relaxation. They change their clothes and turn in their personal belongings, including their mobile phones. Participants learn how to relax their bodies and meditate at a mountain. However, that's not all. This program is called Prison Inside Me, and there's a reason.
The most special feature of the program is that participants spend the night in this prison cell alone. In this setting, totally disconnected from the outside world, people can access their deepest state of mind and relieve stress while reflecting on their own lives in peace and quiet.
The center offers dozens of rooms that resemble prison cells, where people willingly lock themselves up to ponder their lives without distractions or interruptions. Since the center opened last year, several hundred people have stayed here.
I feel more somber, as all the distracting thoughts inside me disappear, as I empty my mind.
But why prison?
I first came up with the idea when I was working as a prosecutor. I was totally exhausted and wanted to spend some time alone in prison to rearrange my life.
It's said everyone has their own prison inside them and that they live under its influences. We hope this program gives people time to reflect about the restraints they live under and how to free themselves from them.
For those seeking to regain a balance in life again, a couple of days outside of their ordinary lives can provide a restart button for their weary minds and bodies. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
A picture can say 1,000 words, but it's the story that these words tell that's truly important. Today, our Im Yun-hee has a photo exhibition with pictures that tell the story of Korea's capital city, Seoul. Good afternoon, Yun-hee.
Good afternoon. So nowadays, there are so many pictures all around us, whether they be selfies, maybe pictures going viral. And until then, many people take pictures to capture memories. But if you look at these pictures, you can also learn about your past. Now, that's exactly what this festival does. The Seoul Photo Festival has gathered thousands of different photos from over the years, and now they aim to tell the story of Seoul's unique history. So take a look.
It's hard to imagine as cars whiz by in a city that over 10 million call home, a different landscape. There are hundreds of offices, museums, and structures crowded here in the capital. But decades ago, most of these buildings weren't here. And the ones that were, well, they've withstood the test of time and now represent the rich history within the city. These are the pictures of our capital. They're the pictures of our Seoul.
Photography first entered Korea in the beginning of the 1880s, and since then, we've been able to document pictures of Seoul. This year marks the 620th year since Seoul has been considered the capital, and for over 500 years during the Joseon dynasty, there wasn't much change to the circular structure. But after foreign influences entered, everything from the shape of the city to the style of architecture changed.
And it was these foreign influences that drove the direction of Seoul for the next 50 years. During the Joseon dynasty, Seoul was actually called Hanseong. But with the trickling in of Western culture, buildings began to show a much different style. And when Japan invaded, Hanseong became Gyeongseong, and the streets really began to reflect physical changes. Although foreign influence crept in even more and more, there was still a strong presence of a traditional Korea, and the struggle between the two was evident throughout the city. It wasn't until the sudden destruction of the Korean War, a war that almost wiped the slate clean, that Gyeongseong became Seoul, and the capital of Korea saw an explosion of transformation.
After the Korean War, the need for reconstruction was immediate, so everything happened quickly. And that's how the modern Seoul began. Things like the Namsan cable car and the 6-3 building were raised as a result of the industrial development that gripped the city, leading to economic growth and ultimately the development of Korea.
Along the way, sacrifices were made in order to reveal some of Seoul's most beautiful attributes. And now that the dust has settled, the result is a city of splendor and of endless possibility. The colors of Korea will always keep changing, shining a bright light on the future ahead.
So this is the first year for the festival to take place, or has it happened last year too?
Well, actually, this festival first started in 2012, and in past years, they've covered different topics such as memory, such as the people, different aspects of Seoul and its history. But this year, the focus on the birth of Seoul's visual and spatial realms, and they're actually focusing more on how Seoul started as Hanseong and then turned into Gyeongseong and then went to Seoul, and now we know it as Seoul.
Right. So every year it's being held, but under different themes.
Right, under different themes. So you get a different look at Seoul and its past.
Okay. And are there any other events taking place for viewers who want, or for spectators who want to go? If you're just looking at the photos, it might be a little bit boring.
Right. So actually, they are offering quite a other different events in addition to this particular festival. They're offering a historical sites tour, and that actually takes you on the route that was taken during a tour offered during the Japanese invasion. So that's another little neat blast into the past with this particular event. And they're also offering screenings of Korean movies, and some of these movies actually date back to the 30s. And so that's another way. Of course, pictures are a good way to learn about the past, but movies also offer a very unique glimpse into the different time periods. And so they're offering screenings of those as well, and you can find all that information on the website.
Okay, so the exhibition is part of the festival?
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Yun-hee, for today's report.
You're very welcome.
And that's a wrap from us at this hour. More news coming up at 4 p.m. Korea time. Bye-bye for now.